So that's important. I'd like to introduce a Republican candidate for...
I want to share a story with you about how we do not face the kind of opposition we think we do. Republicans have felt outnumbered in this state for a long time. We have felt like we couldn't win elections, and yet our ballot measures were winning again and again and again. Our candidates would lose, but our ideas and our values would win. Isn't that interesting? Well, some of my friends up in Portland and I decided we would push the boundaries of what we could do to force the media to cover something we wanted them to cover. This was the summer before Obamacare passed, which was what, just last year? Is it that recently? And they were going to have that big national special on TV. I think it was NBC was going to do this 1 hour, the president roundtable, and no opposition time was going to be allowed. For the first time, the President of the United States would address the nation and there would be no equal time for other opinions. The first time this had ever happened. And you might say to yourself, well, what can I do? I'm in Oregon. I could have said, what can I do? I'm in Portland. I said, well, it's not my job to say no. It's their job to say no. It's my job to ask or even demand. And so here's what we got. We got together 3 people with picket signs. And we picketed the local affiliate of the national network that was showing the old Obamacare infomercial. And we said it was unfair. Now you're asking yourself, what can 3 people possibly do? Well, within half an hour, they were out there with a camera asking us questions. Why are you picketing us? What's going on here? Asking very hostile questions to which we had already practiced our answers. And we had very reasonable answers that you guys need to allow equal time. And they said, but we're a local affiliate. And I said, you can do local programming. And they looked very serious and they went away. Now it helped that the evening before the protest, we'd sent out a press release to all the news outlets that they were going to get picketed, and they were embarrassed in front of their peers. So this helps. 10 minutes after they get inside, we're still out picketing. We don't know about this till later. They run a crawl across on the TV screen. They are going to put together a local panel to discuss Obamacare live from the studio right after the president is done talking. We got equal time. And what did it take? It took us 3 picketers, me, my daughter, who I had to arm twist until I told her we might get in trouble, and then she was all there. And 1 guy from Facebook who took off early from work. 3 people was all it took to get us a half hour of programming on a Portland TV station. When we show up and demand fairness, sometimes we get it. And the other side is counting on us feeling defeated so we don't try, so we don't make them work. Now, it's been a long time since I did any kind of sports. You look at me, you're probably thinking, yeah, Tom, it's probably been a long time since you did any sports. And that's a true statement. And the team I was on, everybody was better than us. Let's just put it that way. And when we decided that we were going to make the other team earn every point, we would give up nothing. Make them earn it. And we can do that here. We can make the other side earn every vote they get. See, here's the thing. 2 years ago, 100,000 Republicans didn't vote in the state of Oregon. Registered Republicans. We have their names and addresses. We have many of their phone numbers. We could knock on their door. There's enough of us that we could say, hey, really think you ought to vote. And many of them would have said yes. And if 20,000 of that 100,000 had voted, we would have a Republican governor today. That's how close it's been. And the other side is terrified. To which I can only say, get used to it. This year, we are seeing far more get-out-the-vote energy in Oregon than I have ever seen. Far more than we had 2 years ago. And this is going to be a turnout election. There are plans in Douglas County to knock on 20,000 doors. If I don't get 10,000 flyers down to the Douglas County GOP office, they're going to have words with me here very shortly. Now the candidates are in the wonderful position of having to catch up to you. And that's a good thing. If you can do your part of knocking on doors, here's what I can do for you. I can reach those people who are on the fence, in the middle, care about a couple of issues, and we can get them energized. I'm running for state treasurer. I'm Tom Cox. There's two things I'm running on. The state treasurer, number one, sits on the state land board. There are 3 votes on the state land board. I would be one. Our next Secretary of State, Newt Buehler, will be number 2. At which point it really doesn't matter that the 3rd vote is the ever irrelevant Governor Kitzhaber. We can start to move from the state land board on down. We can start to move in the direction of putting our natural resource economy back to work for this state. To create jobs. And all we need to do that is 8 more votes per precinct. 8. More votes per precinct than we got last time. 8 more phone calls, 8 more door knocks than you did before. 8. All the energy from 2 years ago, plus just that little more. I said there's 2 things I'm running on the state land board. Is one, it's a huge one, it's crucial. And the other one is the reform of PERS. Are they filming? If they're filming, we got to be really more enthusiastic than that. So let's try it again. What? The reform of PERS. I love you. And when we reform PERS, we will be able to lower taxes, shrink government, and grow the private economy. Yeah. Here's the exciting thing about that. Reforming PERS is actually a bipartisan thing because I swore I would never live in Multnomah County. I swore I would never ever live in Portland. And then I fell in love. And I was renting and she owned, and I live in Multnomah County now. Things we do for love. And I belong to the City Club of Portland, which is 90% liberal Democrats, 8% Marxists, communists, and socialists, and me, and a handful of other very, very tolerant Republicans. The great thing about being an elephant is you got a thick hide. Even the liberal Democrats in the City Club of Portland are worried about PERS. And they say to me, Tom, you're going to lose this race. And I say, yeah, maybe. The only way to guarantee loss is not to be on the ballot. I'm on the ballot thanks to the write-ins of all of you. Thank you very much. Okay, maybe I'll win, maybe I'll lose. So tell me about, well, how do you think about reforming PERS? Oh my gosh, we've got to reform PERS. It's eating the heart out of all of the programs that we love. Right? The big government types are just as worried about PERS as the rest of us because it's destroying the agencies. It's eating the heart out of their budgets. They're having to do layoffs and so on. They're scared. And I said, well, compare my PERS reform plan to my opponent's. And they said, he hasn't got one. I say, exactly. And I lay out my reform plan, and they go, maybe I'll support you. I said, that'd be great. Maybe I'll donate money under $50 so it's not reportable. My friends don't know. Okay, great. How about a lawn sign? I can't do a lawn sign. But they'll vote for me. You want to hear the PERS reform plan, or should we get on to the next speaker? I'll do whatever you want. You want to hear it? I'll be real quick. Here's the PERS reform plan. 4 basic steps. Number 1, stop the bleeding. We've got to end defined benefit. Even Tier 3, the supposedly reformed PERS, you got Tier 1, which is incredibly lucrative for a lot, not all, but a lot of workers. Tier 2, which is a little bit smaller. Tier 3, which is sort of in theory controlled. Even Tier 3 is still defined benefits. Here's what's wrong with defined benefits. A politician in a defined benefit system can go to a state worker and say to him, hey, In exchange for your vote today, I will today make a promise that your eventual benefits get bigger. How's that? And a lot of state workers go, okay. And so the politicians are buying votes today with a promise that they don't have to fund. An empty promise. PERS is filled with empty promises and pixie dust and fairy wings. And a tiny, tiny bit of cash. That's why it's underfunded by over $16 billion. If you've got defined benefit, the politicians can always, even tomorrow, even if we fix PERS completely, 10 years from now, they are still going to be able to go to the state workers and say, hey, you vote for me today, I will today make a promise that 20 years from now you'll get all these big benefits, for which we put aside no money. That empty promise is always going to be available to the dishonest politician until we switch completely to defined contribution. And then the promise must be paid for immediately. It is a pay-as-you-go system. Defined contribution. See, DB, defined benefit, is darn bad. DB, darn bad. Defined contribution, DC. That is darn correct. So just bear that in mind. Not DB, but DC. Not defined benefit, but defined contribution. I know, you're going to sleep. I'm sorry. Next, I'll talk about actuarial tables. Fortunately, they're filming that way, so we're safe. There's 4 steps to the PERS reform. Number 1 is end defined the benefit for all new employees. Stop the bleeding. Defined contribution from now on. Step 2 is we freeze the current pensions so that everything that's been accrued up to today is still their property, but new benefits moving forward cannot be accrued under the old plan. It can only be accrued under a new defined contribution plan. So 1 is cut it off, 2 is freeze it. This stops the problem from getting worse. We still haven't fixed it. Number 3 is we offload through some very careful bonding a portion of what is oppressing these counties and school boards and so on, and take some of it off of them and onto general obligation bonds, which scares me, which is why we have to get our piece of it before we give them that, because they'll take that and run with it. And then we buy down those bonds with massive improvement in government efficiency, starting with something called, and you've probably never heard of this, a social impact bond. This is one of the coolest things to happen in the last 200 years of government. It's something that's actually new, that actually works in government. It goes like this. A social impact bond, I'm glad many of you are sitting, is where you pay for results. This is revolutionary in the world of government. I have a hard time breaking it to them that this is how the private sector's been working since forever. You pay for results. And so someone says, we're going to reduce teen pregnancies by 100. And then the legislature says, okay, we'll pay you X dollars for every one of those you successfully do. And if you overshoot your target, you'll get more money. And if you undershoot, you'll get less. And anybody can bid. And this is a step towards privatizing many of the functions of government, dramatically slimming down the functions of government. New Zealand, under a Labour government, managed to take their Department of Transportation from 6,000 employees to 60 and improve the quality of their roads. We can do this here. We can do this here. So we will use the PERS crisis to force fundamental structural reform, and I will have 4 years to do nothing else. People will say, Tom, you're the treasurer, you don't set policy. I said, yeah, I don't set policy, but I'm responsible for honestly and accurately reporting to the taxpayers and the voters and the legislature the health of the PERS system, and nothing's preventing me from coming up with reform plans. So I will articulate reform plans again and again and again until we get them passed. And that is how we're going to reform PERS, ladies and gentlemen. So I'm excited to see you here dedicated to getting out the vote, to educating your neighbors, to reaching out to even to the liberal Democrats who are terrified of PERS blowing up in their faces and destroying all their favorite government programs. This is an eminently winnable race, and there's one more thing that happened last week, and I have to share it with you. A third-party candidate is now in the race. The deadline is about upon us. There won't be any